Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Record Rangers podcast, brought to you by NordVPN, the best place to get all your internet security and all for the price of a single cup of coffee per month. My name is Andy Newport. I'm joined as ever by my colleague Scott McDermott. Scott, how are you? We're here
very well, Andrew,
in the sunny surrounds of Bialystok for Rangers ahead of Rangers Europa League tie against Jagiellonia. As ever, I'm butchering the pronunciations, I'm afraid. So, we're due to go and speak to Derek McInnes a little later on this afternoon, and it's Cammy Demlin's going to be playing up for interview. How do you see this tie going? It's an important one, especially after the way that Friday night's Premiership opener against Dundee United went.
It is important. First of all, what a lovely place we're in, isn't it? 30 degrees. I don't know if that'll be a factor in for the game tomorrow night, because it's an early-ish kick-off on at 6 o'clock, but a really nice place. It's a vital tie, Andy, in terms of Rangers' European prospects, obviously, and I think it's a tough one to start. Derek McInnes is still the start of this kind of Rangers rebuild, if you like. Still trying to put together a squad. Obviously he's got a new signing, Daisuke Yokota.
You've nailed the pronunciation again.
I know.
Every week.
I pride myself on that. So he's on the plane and eligible to play. It wouldn't surprise me if Derek McInnes throws him right in, such as his desperation for any right winger or any winger wanting to play in the right. But it's a tough place to come. Jagiellonia is a decent side. From everything I've heard, I'm sure we'll talk about it. I spoke to some people who have been here and experienced it, and it's a hostile environment. So for a first European game of the season, the Rangers are still trying to kind of get their rhythm. We saw that Tannadice on Friday night. I think it's a really tough time. I think Rangers in the first leg, if they can just get out of here, making sure they're still well in the tie, to hopefully go and finish the job at Ibrox next week, then I think that will be a result for them. Just
to start off then with the news we had this morning, I think it was about 10 o'clock UK time, 11 o'clock where we are, the signing of Daisuke Yokota from Hannover 96 in Germany was confirmed. For you, is that the end of Rangers sort of search for wide options out on the right hand side, or do you think that there'll be more to come?
No, I think there's more to come. I think we all agree that I think Derek McInnes' position at the moment is he needs two right wingers. Yokota's the first one, but I think we'll be back in the market for another one. He's inherited a squad where I think every wide player wants to play on the left hand side. You think of guys like Finlay Curtis, Jedi Gassama, even Oliver Antman, even Asgard, they all want to play off the left. Don't have a natural right winger at all. So Yokota,
it's been a position that you're talking about. Maybe Daniel Candeias was really the last time he had a natural right-sided winger. Obviously Scott Olsen was the last year, but so disappointing.
Cherny was probably the most successful one, wasn't he? He showed what you need in that position. I think 18 goals in his loan season that he had. I'm sure a lot of Rangers fans would be desperate to get him back if it was possible. It doesn't look likely at the moment, but no, I think he wants two in that position. And I think also he probably wants one in the left as well, because as much as obviously Antman's away, Bayrami's away, Asgard's more central, Curtis is obviously still a young player developing. He gave Derek McInnes gave Gassama a big chance at Tannadice, and he just didn't take it. And I think that was a real opportunity for Gassama. I don't know how you felt at the game, but given what Gassama's done in kind of pre-season, I felt as if that was Derek McInnes saying, right, so on you go. I'm giving you a big chance here to go and grab this because I need somebody in that position. And he didn't do it. First 45 minutes weren't good enough, and he gets whipped off at half time.
To be honest, for me, it sort of sums up Jedi Gassama. I think he's such a frustrating player. He's clearly got talent.
Yeah.
He's got ability, he's got pace, he can run, he can dribble, he can shoot. But again, it's a bit like at times Taylor Asgard. It's just how he pieces it all together. How does he play in moments or does he play consistently? And more often than not, it's not consistent at all. And for me, I look at him, I think he's so much more effective when the game's ragged, when the game's open, when there's spaces to attack, and inevitably when you're playing for a team like Rangers who are going to be so dominant on the ball, and the teams are going to be sitting in such tight formations, that really that's only really in the later stage of a game when things get broken up a wee bit. So for me, he's an impact. So I don't think he's a starter. I think the same sort of maybe goes for Finlay Curtis. I think you'll see more. He's more benefit right now where he is in his career off the bench. So Rangers really need to go out and get two proper starting wingers. I mean,
you think Newport will start tomorrow night? I've got a feeling they might just throw him in.
I do, but only on the basis because I don't think they've got nobody really else. I mean, as you say, they experimented with sort of Nadiri playing sort of wide to the right. Dundee United didn't work at all really. Although we obviously see he got a hat-trick in a sort of bounce-slow game against, I think it was Partick Thistle. So maybe that's omens, against the team called the Jags that play in red and yellow. But no, I think it'll be a needs must. He has to start. They've obviously rushed through there. We believe that he's on the plane out here to Poland. He should be. They've obviously rushed through trying to get him his visa and his work permit sorted so he can play. I mean, just looking at his stats, I think it was five goals and all sort of 4-5 assists last season in the sort of Bundesliga 2.
Yeah.
Are those numbers that really get you excited?
Like, it's tough to say no. I mean, second division in Germany, I think it's 5 goals, 4 assists. I mean, I don't think. I think Rangers fans will be delighted that they've got a right winger in, and by all accounts, he's a player that's been kind of highly rated in Germany. I think other clubs were interested in him, Bundesliga clubs. Look, he's 26. He's not a cap for Japan yet, which is interesting. You'd have thought he'd have been a fully fledged international. So look, it's a gamble. I said this last week in the pod. I think apart from when you look at the Cammy Devlin, Lawrence Shankland, and even Ross McCrory signings, for instance, you kind of know what you're getting for these guys. But when you go and spend 2-3 million, that kind of bracket of fee for a player, I think it's always a gamble. I think Macania, or Lethu Macania, falls into that category as well. At the back, when you take a 22-year-old South African for the MLS, there's no way that you know that the guy's going to be a success. You're taking a punt, you're taking a £2-3 million punt on someone who's going to come in, really excel and develop in the hope that you can make a profit off him ultimately, as well as actually the player doing the job at the minute. And I think Yakota's slightly different because he's older, but no, the stats don't immediately get you off your seat. But no, he's played at a good level. Rangers have obviously watched him, and I think he'll get thrown straight in. I think Derek McInnes is so desperate to do some kind of end product on the right flank that he'll just throw him in. But Rangers don't have time really to experiment with players. We say this every season. Don't have time to experiment or allow players settling in periods. I mean, even Celtic league opener the other night. I know Kasper who had been playing in Norway, and but he just got thrown straight in. It wasn't a case of let's let him bed in. And I think Rangers need to do the same.
For me, when you quote, I mean, I watched some of the clips. You can get suckered in by these YouTube clips, can't you? These highlight reels, because I mean, I'm looking at that world beater, but I remember thinking the same Cyril Dessers, and the thing with these things, they never show you the moments where the ball bounces off them, or they don't track a runner, or they fail to make a 5-yard pass.
Look, just sorry to butt in, but the example of that is Antman.
Yeah.
I mean, Antman comes in as the top assist maker in Eredivisie, and you think this guy has to be a success. I mean, if you're creating the most chances, most goals in the Dutch top flight, you're Finnish international, you should be able to cut it in Scottish football. But couldn't they really? Rangers have had to offload them, and now they're trying the next guy.
The thing that was interesting, the comment I saw online was that somebody was saying that he's somebody who tends to go missing or disappears against low blocks, which again that rings alarm bells for me, because I think that is exactly what Rangers are going to face majority of the time. But in terms of Europe, if you're somebody that enjoys having that freedom to roam and spaces to attack, then you imagine certainly in type of game we're going to see tomorrow night. And that might be the type of affair that suits him. But just, in terms of him, even in Germany, you're second division in Germany, you're facing pretty intimidating atmospheres, some pretty loud atmospheres. But just on McCann, I mean, him coming into this kind of environment that we're going to see tomorrow night, I mean, we'll remember the sort of noise and the passion and the colour that was created when Rangers came here a few years ago to face Legia Warsaw, and it was. I wasn't there that night, but I spoke to some of the colleagues that we've travelled out here with who were there that night, and they said it's up there with the loudest atmospheres they've ever experienced. So you imagine McCann coming in for an MLS, with best respect to the world, it is an entirely different world, isn't it? Worlds apart. So I mean, is that a gamble itself on him, or is it again needs must because of Ben Godfrey's injury means that they're down to bare bones?
Needs must. Massive jump for McCann, massive test coming into it, but again, I think he has to get thrown in, he has to start. Godfrey's injured. You would expect the back four to be Sterling, Fernandes, McCann and Romans. I think that's, obviously Ross McCrory could come in, Sterling could win one. That's an option for Derek McInnes, but he has to get McCann up and running as soon as possible. He's played left centre back a lot. You look at a lot of his MLS games, MLS clips, even though I don't think he's naturally left footed, but he's played a lot on the left, he's comfortable there, so I expect him to get thrown in. He obviously played in that bounce game as well, or he certainly played a part of it. So I think he'll play, and you're right.
He's surprised at John Souttar. I know, listen, it's been made pretty clear by Derek McInnes that he's not going to be part of his plans this season, but he's on there. He's just been a World Cup with Scotland. He's an experienced, he was a former vice captain of the team. Okay, we expect him to leave, but we saw, for example, Hearts, having agreed to sell Alexander Schwolo back to Germany, and still started him in a couple of the first few games of the season. Is there not an argument made that John Souttar's better than WNO in that sense?
Aye, maybe. I mean, I'm surprised just at the kind of rapid demise of Souttar over a short period of time. I mean, as you say, from being a fairly regular player for Rangers and going to a World Cup to just be totally out of the picture. But listen, the club and Derek McInnes have made that decision, so I suppose you could argue if they've decided he's not going to be part of it, then they're better just out of it. But
maybe, and also the counter argument, if he gets an injury, then he's stuck here, and Rangers are still struggling to get rid of guys off the wage bill.
But you're right in terms of he's I wouldn't doubt John Souttar's professionalism. So if you needed him to step in, Derek McInnes has needed defenders in the last week or so, then you'd have thought he might be part of it, but he's no. I think that's why McCann has to start. And as you say, the environment here. I spoke to John Carver last week, who was a ex-Scotland assistant manager. He was head coach in Poland at Legia Gdansk for 18 months, and so he's come up against Jagiellonia 3 times. Twice last season, they lost one of the games, and then they actually beat Jagiellonia 3-0 towards the end of the season. So I mean, he's been to this ground, and he said, look, it'll be hostile and it'll be noisy. I think maybe only holds up 23,000, but
I mean, the videos we've seen, we're just about to inform the viewers. We've been here in about an hour's time to go up to see their press conference, but from the sort of video clips we've been sent by the Jagiellonia press officer, it looks quite a compact, quite a modern night type ground.
I think they'll be the top of you.
Yeah, a decent team as well. I mean, we finished third last year in Poland, but I think they're only outscored by the champions like Poznan. I mean, they're a dangerous outfit.
Yeah, I mean, the footlight sound like I know what I'm talking about. I'm going with John Carver here, but they've lost their main striker. I think his name is Palulu.
I know the pronunciations again.
He's left the club in the summer. I think he's actually still a free agent, but looks as if he might go to Saudi Arabia. But he was their main striker. They've got a couple other strikers who will step in, but John Carver was he was their main man, and he'll be a big loss to them. I think when John watched them in pre-season, he felt as if they were kind of weakened by his departure in the forward areas. Maybe they weren't quite as good. But they've got number 10, Spanish guy, experienced, I think that a bit older, plays in behind the striker, who's a danger. says they're two full-backs, who like to bomb forward at every opportunity. Bizarrely, one of their centre-backs is UK Kobayashi. It was a Celtic, and by all accounts has done pretty well here, despite no cutting it in Glasgow. But no, I think they'll be a decent outfit. At home they'll go and try and play and try and attack Rangers, backed by this kind of vociferous crowd. And the message for John Carver was, look, ability-wise, Rangers should be able to beat this team, certainly over two legs. They should have enough. Derek McInnes should have enough in the squad to go and progress to the playoff round. But the big warning for Carver was if they don't handle this atmosphere, they crumble under the kind of the noise and the flares and just the whole environment, the whole surroundings. Then they could end up on the wrong end of a bad result and left with a real uphill task at Ibrox to try and get through. So that's why I said at the start, I think if they can come here, cope with the conditions, cope with the environment, make sure they're still in the tie. I think the game will probably be a draw tomorrow night, and that would be okay for Rangers. I think Derek McInnes would be pretty, of course he'd love to win the game. I think he'd be pretty content to get out of here with a draw and then go and finish the job in Glasgow.
Just before we sort of want to finish off with sort of wider transfer sort of news for the last few days, at Tannadice, I think you and I were travelling up, we were discussing in the car, what sort of team we thought he would put out, and to be honest, I don't think many people saw the 11 that he ended up fielding in Tannadice. There were a few surprises, obviously Ryan Nadiri in there, Gassama coming in, obviously Mohamed Diamandi in there instead of Dan Neil. Do you see any surprises being sprung here, or just as you were saying earlier on, with the guys having been given a chance, would you expect to see maybe the guys that have come in? It was as if he was saying to some of the guys you get from last season, here's a chance to show that the impression that we all had of you last year was wrong. For me, they kind of lived up to the impression. These were the guys that let Rangers down last season, and they kind of failed to live up to it again.
I think you're right. I think they gave guys like Nadiri, Gassama, maybe even Diamandi an opportunity, and I don't think any of them grabbed it at Tannadice. So I think they'll change it up again. I mean, look, it's difficult to predict. We're talking about Yakota and Macania coming in for their debuts, so that's a big change. I'm not entirely convinced they'll go two up front for this game.
That was to be my next. We did discuss this briefly yesterday on the way over here. I mean, you raised the prospect that Lawrence Shankland maybe doesn't start, having just been named captain, that this is maybe not the kind of game for him. You kind of look back to Scotland at the World Cup, and obviously Shankland get dropped for that game against Morocco when they felt they were going to need to have guys with legs or somebody, certainly an outball. I mean, is that the way you're sort of kind of thinking again?
It's interesting. I think ultimately probably will start, which as you say, he's just been named captain, so the unusual, the second game he gets left out. I was just making the point that for me, Rangers didn't sign Lawrence Shankland for away games in Europe. They signed him for domestic football to go and score 20-25 goals that they'll hope can lead them to a title. I mean, if Shankland does start in this game, as I say, I don't think it'll be a full-blown two up front away from home in Europe, a difficult place. So if Shankland was to start, I think he needs to either start up front on his own, or he would be a kind of withdrawn role, almost as a number 10, dropping into midfield, playing off a striker. I mean, he could leave him out. You're looking ahead to Sunday's game at home to Hibs. You could argue is even more important to Rangers, and obviously that's a game that you've looked to start Lawrence Shankland up front. Could they go with a Shamiti up top tomorrow night with Asgard playing off him, for instance? Asgard can drop into midfield comfortably, gives him a kind of free role to go and do his thing. I think there's a possibility of that. However, as you say, Shankland is captain. He's just been named captain. It would be unusual for him not to start the game. So, but I just think it's really difficult to predict. I expect Dan Neil to come in. He didn't start at Tannadice. I thought did okay when he came on. I expect Asgard to start because at the moment he's the guy that looks as if he could come up with something, come up with a moment for them. So listen, I've named the defence. I think that'll probably be the starting back four and the keeper. Ahead of that, I think Cammy Devlin and Dan Neil start. I think Asgard starts. But in terms of those kind of front three positions, I think they're up for grabs. Certainly, as I said, I think the Japanese boy will probably start on the right. But it'll be interesting to see how Derek McInnes goes, because I actually do think he might have kind of one eye on Sunday. I think first game at Ibrox in the league at home, especially after you've dropped 2 points on the opening night, it's absolutely imperative Rangers will win against Hibs on Sunday. So I think the manager will look at that and he'll want everybody tip-top for Sunday.
Just quickly, just jumping back to the post-match at Tannadice, we were obviously in the Bills at the stadium. We were speaking to Derek McInnes after the game, and he definitely gave a sort of hint of frustration, didn't he, when he was asked about the need for signings, and he said, listen, it has to be said, we need signings in quicker. Obviously the recruitment team have sort of stepped that up this week with the quota coming in, as we say. Obviously there's also Fares Gajemis coming in from Frosinone. Did I get that one alright?
You'll see coming in.
Well, certainly there's been an offer lodged. I think there's been 2 offers lodged. The second one around £8 million that has been rejected. Club are now weighing up whether or not they want to go back in. Obviously interest from Celtic as well. I don't think they're ready to give up that one either. So the 2 clubs sort of going head to head. I think the big thing will be is whether the Italian club will come down in their valuation. I believe there's they're basically digging their heels in. They think he's worth around something £13 million and upwards. So I think there's an understanding this is a player that Rangers like, Celtic like as well. It's whether or not they like him enough to go to that kind of figure, whether he's worth that kind of figure. But does that at least show you that the club are responding to Derek McInnes' concerns in that sense?
I think it does, in terms of I think Derek McInnes wants proven quality signings,
not projects.
That are going to impact his first team, and I don't think you get that really for £2-3 million. £2-3 million. I think you need to almost go to the 6, 7, 8 million point. Where you're getting guys who you can be relatively certain will come in and will make a real impression. So Gajemis is obviously one that they think can do that. I mean, the interesting thing for me, Andy, is for Rangers to get involved in a kind of bidding war with Celtic. I mean, it doesn't happen too often, because obviously the team that loses out, it doesn't look great for them. So the fact that Rangers essentially kind of confirmed that they're in for this guy, and there's been a couple of bids, and knowing fine well that Celtic are a competitor, then it tells you Rangers must think they've got a real chance to get them. Whether that means that the player or his representative indicated that Rangers would be his preferred destination, who knows, it might come down to salary, who's offering the most money and wages. But as I say, if they lose out on him, and if he goes to Celtic, it's not a great look.
Especially when you've already had this perception, rightly or wrongly, amongst fans that in terms of, they've signed 8, 9 players now with Yokoda coming in, but the fact that it's taken this long, with a game already into the season, Derek McInnes has been manager for 5-6 weeks, it's taken this long to really get attacking signings made. There's a perception amongst fans that have been dragging their feet, so if you then go and miss out, especially to your bitterest of rivals, then again, all it does is put more spotlight, more attention onto the guys in the recruitment department.
There's a bit of negativity there. You don't want that negativity building. Rangers want to try and build positive momentum at this stage of the season. You don't want any negativity. But McInnes certainly don't want any negativity surrounding it. But you're right, that night at Tannadice, you could sense a bit of frustration in him.
The fact he was willing to make that kind of statement so early, I think that can only be cause of his frustration.
He's been pretty consistently kind of back the recruitment team in terms of how hard they're working behind the scenes to try and do what needs to be done. But I just think with the result at Tannadice and the fact that we are now into a season of big Euro qualifiers coming up, there was a wee bit of frustration there that things haven't been a bit quicker.
It's his job to push the players to give as much as they can. It's also his job as manager to push the other people at the club. That's what he's there to do. And I think right in that sense, if he felt that not dragging their feet, but if the deals aren't progressing at the sort of rate that he wants, he is right in that sense then to sort of give them a wee jag and hope that he can get a couple of things across the line.
I think in terms of the recruitment and in terms of the signing, I think there was a belief, certainly on the outside, but I think Derek McInnes probably thought the same, was that they did good early business in terms of solid signings. Daniel, Devlin, Shanklin, Corey, Godfrey, the goalkeeper Pandur, the spine of the team, a solid base, if you like. Not a great deal of money spent. I think there's some free transfers, Godfrey coming in on loan. I know Pandur.
It's like $3 million in Pandur.
Yeah, with the bottom going.
A few $700,000 on McCrory, and really that was it
until Dragiellonia, we've not even mentioned him, by the way, who could come into the equation as well. So I think the belief was right that we've built a kind of solid, we've got the business done early that we could get done. Now, as the season's starting, they need to add the real quality. They need to spend a few quid, and I know the window's still got a bit to go. English clubs are barely back yet. If that's the kind of market you want to go into, so it is tough. I just think because the game on Friday night didn't go Rangers' way, and when you look at the performance, I think that's what fueled the frustration in Derek McInnes. I think he doesn't want to start the season getting away from them when they've not quite got the squad the way they want to.
Well, that's what I'm going to say again, just coming back to this game. This is perhaps why this game has, as all games do, but an extra importance that if you can just get that first win, if you can start turning things, as you say, in a positive direction, then it does take some of the scrutiny, some of the pressure away from other aspects, other departments at the club. So, I mean, every game, as they say, is important in Rangers, but there are at this stage in the season, there's other wee subplots and narratives at play that you have to take into consideration.
I think it's a big week for them, Andy, and it sounds crazy to say that so early in Derek McInnes' tenure as manager, but this is a big week. They need to get a positive result here tomorrow night, which keeps them in the tie. They definitely need to beat Hibs at the weekend after the draw at Tannadice. Again, sounds daft, but can't afford anymore another slip up in the league even this early. And then obviously they'll have the second leg, the tie against Jagiellonia. And as you say, they want to get through that because it builds positive momentum. I think in the next round, Rangers will fancy their chances against the Georgian side or Larne. In the playoff round, that would then guarantee them Europa League group stage football, which is what they want. So it's a massive week. The two games against Jagiellonia and the Hibs game at Ibrox is huge for the manager and these players. But to give McInnes the best chance, he doesn't. He needs more signings. I mean, we're talking about he needs another right winger, a left winger,
left centre back,
another left centre back, cover at left back. So still work to be done, still players to get out. And you mentioned John Souttar, there's one or two others that will probably go as well. Lyle
Cameron, Conor Barron maybe, Ross McLaughlin, Clinton and Ciala, Nico Raskin again. Again the rumours have kind of went a little bit quiet in that front as well. So
Raskin's a big one because if you think of the fee that they could potentially get in, that might be the key to all this. I'm talking about Derek McInnes wanting proven quality and having to spend a bit more than the kind of 2 or 3 millions that they spent at the minute. If they sell Raskin for 15 million plus, that could open up funds to Derek McInnes. And whether that's what Andrew Carvin or the recruitment team, whether they're waiting on that, well, I'm led to believe that they do expect bids to come in for Raskin in the coming days, given his World Cup performance, obviously. So that's the key part.
I think Derek McInnes admitted that himself when he sort of branded him a flight risk. So we'll see how that pans out in the weeks to come. We'll certainly see how the game tomorrow night goes. You can, as always, keep up to date with it online at Record Sport online and also in the paper. And you can tune in next week. We'll also have the debrief from this game and from Hibs against Rangers at Ibrox. Again, we thank our sponsors VPN. We ask if you could give us a like and a review in all the usual places, Spotify, Apple Music. That helps us to share the pod far and wide. And it's from Scott and I, we thank you and we'll see you next week.